we begin the finance, implementing the finance bill, then it gives us impetus, therefore, to look back when we are coming to the end of the year and say, were our expectations achieved? That which we set out to do, because whatever recommendations we had given were all synthesized in the act that was released. Are we going to receive the public good that we all expect? So a lot of that conversations incoming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, CPA Dr. Grace. We go to CPA Mogore, her opening remarks.
Good evening. My name is Josephine Mogore. I work at CARE. I am the Chief Manager, Budget Support and Legislative Reforms. That carries from the Finance Act and other tax regulations, legislation, be they regulations or the main laws. And I can confirm what CPA Wariro said about the submissions from Icpak. They were quite a whole bit. What we do when you bring those submissions, the proposals that the government calls for, are not only for Icpak, it's for everyone. We sit in a room, round a table, the National Treasury and a few of us seconded to the Treasury from KRA, and we go through each and every proposal. And I challenge any of you next year when you bring a proposal, come and ask what we said about it. We go through each and every proposal. We advise the senior officers of the government. We give opinions, we research on what each and everything, even if Icpak brought it, an accounting firm brought it, a Kenyan brought it, we'll have 3 comments on that particular proposal. So we go through each of them and you give our opinion, and ours is to advise the PS, and then the PS can decide whether to take it or not. So that's what I do most part of the year, and I'm glad to come back and meet the people who bring these proposals. I'm here to engage you, to answer your questions. KRA has a face, I'm the face today, we are many faces. So I'm the face today, and this is what I deal with, and I'm here to answer your questions, so ask them.
Thank you so much, CPA Mogore, for that, because enough times when we are doing the public participation and then we don't see our proposals going through, we say this is an effortless activity. It is a PR, but thank you for clarifying to us that every submission that is given, you receive it, you analyze it, and then you give your recommendation. Thank you for that. Yeah, so next we have again our very own CPA Cyrus Ondari from the Controller of Budgets. So please tell us, just give us an intro and tell us 1 or 2 things relating to your office in relation to the Finance Bill, Finance Act.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. And good afternoon, fiscal members and those in the online platform. My name is Ondari Cyrus from the Office of the Controller of Budget. As you are aware, our office is established under Article 228 of the Constitution, basically to ensure that we oversee budget implementation at the national level and at the county level. Our responsibility is to ensure that every shilling that goes into the public coffers is utilized as it's supposed to be. On the Finance Act 2026, I look at it as a tax procedures act because it looks at several other aspects that basically revises the way we do things. For instance, the period of filing returns, now reducing it from 6 months for individual to about 4 months, somehow it minimizes the time upon which now we're supposed to ensure we file our returns and pay our dues. At the same time for companies and corporates for 6 months, but still the same time to ensure that at least we comply within good time. But I believe such kind of efforts on compliance, even on digital compliance, is aspects to ensure that our country is able to widen the tax base and ensure that those who are supposed to pay, they pay, and those who can be able to monitor those resources, which includes now the Office of the Controller of Budget, ensures that the resources which have been received, every single shilling must mean something. It must mean a service to Kenyans. It must mean a specific good which must be delivered at all times. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cyrus, for that. So we should all know that when we have the Finance Act, it's not just about our pockets, it's even how things are going to be done. Look at those timelines and ensure that you abide with them. And he has mentioned something very important, that when we look at tax and the collections and increasing of the tax base, the key thing in terms of the tax base is is their trust. And I'm sure if Mwananchi trusts that every shilling that is collected is going to be put in the right use, there'll be less leakages and even less types of tax that keep being introduced every now and then. So with that introduction, now we all know our panelists, we have an idea of their view and what their offices do. So we'll start our first round of questions, which is going to go to FCPA Robert Warero. And I want him to move from the legislative floor to market reality, to tax policy on paper, which often is maybe something that brings friction when it meets everyday operations. We note, as we have said, that the Finance Act 2026 introduced fundamental structural revisions, starting from redefining digital platform royalties, expanding the withholding tax corps on payment networks, rewriting compliance timelines for the income tax. Again, for businesses, it talked about managing cash flows and households, and actually affecting just the whole spectrum. So I want us to look at the technical implication and the persistent bottlenecks that occur between a budgetary allocation and actual execution on the ground. And my question to support this is, and I want you to take maybe around maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm combining two questions. So my first question is this to you, FCPA Warero. What are the most significant implications of the Finance Act 2026 for the Kenya's 2026-27 budget implementation, and which measures require close monitoring by stakeholders? And I would want you to highlight a few provisions with implications for businesses, households, and citizens. And then as you talk about that, I want you to bring in the bottlenecks. Yeah, what are the bottlenecks between that budget allocation and actual implementation and solutions? Because we should not just mention questions or problems without having solutions. So to you, FCPA Warero.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for that question, or those questions, Chair. So I think let's make it a bit practical, because like Cyrus said, the essence of the Finance Act is really to augment government revenue, because it's important to understand or to remember that as we speak, there are current provisions of the law. There is the Income Tax Act, the VAT Act, the Excess Duty Act, all those ones are in place. So what happens every budget cycle is that stakeholders, and these stakeholders could be taxpayers, it could be institutions like Icpak, it could be government as well, who comes up with proposals to augment the revenue raising measures. So that's the essence of the Finance Act. Now, the question that you're asking is very important, because as we are bringing in these proposals, there's definitely some impacts that will come through. And the reason why I was earlier saying that it's important to follow these proposals is, if you look at the Finance Act 2026, for example, it has removed excess duty on drinking water. And we've always asked the question, why do you have excess duty on drinking water? And remember, this excess duty was about 7 shillings and about 12 cents per liter, which means that if you buy a bottle of water, a half a liter bottle of water, you're paying about 3 shillings or thereabouts in excess duty. Now, if you think about the cost of that excess duty stamp, whether it's digital or physical, you start asking yourself, why are we even collecting this? And this is a question that we're asking the policymakers. Why do we even need this excess duty on water? And don't forget, by the way, that water has ceased being a luxury. I mean, when you're walking in town or when you're out there maybe attending a function, you'll be given a bottle of water, mineral water. So today is no longer a luxury. So why do we actually even need excess duty on that? And we're very happy that policymakers listened to that proposal and they have now removed it. Of course, the policymakers are expecting that there's going to be an impact on the final consumer in terms of a reduction in price, because now the manufacturers of this product are no longer charging excess duty. And don't forget that excess duty forms part of the base for VAT purposes. So there's an expectation that the manufacturers will then pass on that cost. And we really hope that that's going to be the case, because part of the pushback that we've been receiving from policymakers is, but even if we remove these taxes, we can't see an impact on the consumer prices. So we really hope that the manufacturers are going to look at that. Now, so that's an example of a really good thing. We could also discuss other good proposals like the amnesty, for example. I don't know how many of you, especially in the room here, tried filing your returns the last week of June. It was a big problem. And understandably so, because you've got a system here which is now encountering significant volumes of traffic. So it's expected that it will be slow. It's expected that it perhaps may not be responsive. And the truth of the matter is, there are some people who perhaps did not manage to file their returns on time, which means that you've now accrued a penalty. But now with the amnesty coming in place, we're happy that it's going to, give people an opportunity to review their affairs, ensure that they are compliant, and therefore not have to suffer the penalties and interest as a result of the waiver of the amnesty. So again, amnesty, a fantastic provision. As Icpak, we actually proposed that, and we supported that proposal in the finance bill. So we're very happy that it has come through. So those are two examples of things that would probably impact even the smaller businesses. But now, let's make it personal. Let's look at some of the proposals that, especially the ones that came through the floor of the House during the committee of the whole House. That's the third reading of the finance bill. And if you look at particularly the provisions around excise, there's been a raft of changes around excise duty, particularly on plywood, on MDF, on particle boards, and on tiles and ceramics. So there's been a significant shift in the tax regime or the excise duty regime of those products. And for example, for tiles, it used to be that you pay 5% of the accessible value, or 300 shillings per square meter of tiles. If any of you has ever built or you have a mjengo somewhere, then you're definitely discussing with your architect or your contractor about square meters of tiles that you require. So that was the previous regime. Now the regime has changed to be that it's 5% of accessible value, or 50 shillings per kg. Now on the face of it, it looks like it's a really good proposal, because we're moving from 300 shillings per square meter to 50 shillings per kg. But if you think about it, the tiles are coming in different levels. So you've got maybe 6 millimeters, 8 millimeters, 12 millimeters, and so on. So on average, a square meter has got about, let's say, 12 to 15 kgs of tiles. So if you just take an average of 10 kgs per square meter, it means that you're paying 10 shillings for every kg at 50, so you're paying 50 shillings for every kg. So for 10 kgs, you're paying 500 shillings, isn't it? So now your duty has changed from 5% of accessible value, or 300 shillings per square meter, to 5% of accessible value, or 500 shillings equivalent per square meter, assuming that the weight is 10 kg. So you can see that government has, in a sense, enhanced those tax rates, and this is definitely impact the common Mwananchi. And I say the common Mwananchi because if you think about those of us who are renting, if I'm building a house for rent, and now for me to do the partitioning with these boards, or to put in the kitchen for or the tile work, the shower heads even, all this will have a higher or enhanced excise duty, which means that as an investor, I have to charge you more rent, which means that it will impact you. So sometimes we look at these proposals and we think that they will not impact me because I'm not building. No, they potentially will impact you because you are a consumer at the end of the day. And those are the questions that we are saying. Can we have a look at these proposals and see how best we can optimize revenue for government? Because it's important that we pay taxes. Don't get me wrong. It's so important that we pay taxes, because if we don't pay taxes, how are we going to pay our policemen? How are we going to pay our teachers? How are we going to run our government? How are we going to pay our loans? So it's important that we pay the taxes, and that's the reason why I agree with you, Chair, that this whole debate of tax morality, how are the stewards of our resources, how are they using them so that we can be encouraged not only to pay, but where we have not paid, to also come forth and take advantage of the amnesty. So that's an example of perhaps something that we feel as a committee of the Institute that should perhaps be relooked at the next cycle, because it will definitely impact. And especially when you're thinking about the affordable housing, because I get an affordable housing unit, so I need to kit it out, maybe I need to do something. So you can see that the expense will be piling up, and that's part of the challenge that we're having. Now, in terms of the disconnect, and especially with the allocations, remember we collect taxes, and this year we are aiming to collect about 3 trillion in ordinary revenue meaning taxes, and then about 600 billion in appropriations in aid. Those are the fees that you pay for government access and so on. So once we collect those revenues, they are going to then be allocated to the various ministries, and I'm sure somebody is going to be talking about those allocations to the education ministry, to health, and the like, agriculture. So what we think is, if we can follow those allocations and particularly ensure that we give these expense lines or these expenditure items the mandate to incur, because the problem we face is we allocate funds, but then because of various problems, including procurement, the ability to absorb, you find that somebody has been given a budget allocation of 100 billion, but they have only been able to absorb 30. So what happens to the 70? And this is the reason why you will see us going into supplementary budgets, reallocating, moving this one from here to there, and not really achieving it. So we really need to think about the capacity to absorb these funds, so that if we know that you cannot absorb, then let's not give it to you. And that brings me to the point of priority. What really are our priorities? What should we be funding as a country? So that we give the priority areas funding, so that then we can enhance the multiplier effect in the economy from an economic perspective. So I think it's important that that capacity is enhanced to absorb. And also, we have value for money. Because the biggest problem we have is, it cannot be that I can do a project, I can maybe tarmac the driveway to my house for X amount, but then when government does it, which is supposed to be more efficient, then it's doing it at maybe 3x of that cost. It cannot be that. And so if we get value for money, and then we, through the teams like Cyrus, so that they then tell us, we have looked at this, we have looked at the allocation, we think that it has been used properly, or if it's not been used properly, then let us hold these people to account, because that is the only way that this country will go. You've already seen the proposals in Parliament that were being discussed the other day about the Sovereign Wealth Fund. We need to keep a bit of this money for the future generations, and that's really a constitutional imperative. We must do that. So it is important that whatever resources we have today are deployed efficiently, and we hold our leaders to account.
Thank you so much, FCP Warero, for that. So I'm sure you can see the budget is going to affect us directly on the matters affordable housing. They are going to be slightly more expensive, especially when you get the materials. Whether you own a house or whether you are renting, that is going to be impacted, especially for the new housing units. Now, I want us to now look at the budget and see how professional bodies can actually chip in to ensure that there's some accountability. So this question is going to go to Grace, our CEO, and I'll start by saying that a budget is essentially a statement of intent, but value for money is determined entirely by accountability. And we know that we have bodies which are oversight institutions. We have professional bodies like Icpak and civil societies that must actually always move away from passive observation towards active budget tracking. So my question to you is this: how should government, parliament, oversight institutions, and professional bodies strengthen transparency, reporting, and accountability throughout the budget cycle? So that is about the process. And then now I want us to go to Mwananchi. What role should citizens, the civil society, the media, and even the private sector play in tracking the budget implementation and demanding value for money? To you, CEO.
Thank you, Prof. And thank you very much, FCP Warero, for breaking it down to our very first level understanding. And before I go to my question, as you're talking about the efficiency within the government, there is a joke that goes around that in the government, so long as you have followed the procurement process, you have had the tender, you have all those documented, the value for money or the market survey sometimes becomes secondary. And therefore, that is why sometimes it becomes very, very difficult to quantify the value for money, that actually you can follow through the process, but what an ordinary Mwananchi can get, maybe the government will get it at more than 10 times or 100 times. And so long as the process is followed, then that process becomes legitimate. And I think that is where we start, by questioning and not being passive, but being able to ask, why is that tissue paper costing 200 shillings, and when I go to the shop, I get it at 30 or 50 shillings? Those are questions we must start asking, and not standing passive even as we start to put the government to account to make sure that we are getting the public good. But now going back to my question, Chair, and thank you very much for this, because this is why we are here today, is to look at this budget. I think this budget has two major issues that you can look at, and I think even as we commence the next year's planning cycle, we must be very, very uncomfortable with it. And one is on our revenue measures. The proposed revenue measures, we are going to raise 3 trillion from our taxes, and 3.6 now if we include the hidden appropriation is detailed by our chair of PFT. But the question is, how much of this is how realistic is this? Are we really going to collect the 3 trillion? Or have we put it there, and as a result, we have tied it with an expenditure, and this expenditure will not wait for the revenue to be collected, but the expenditure can start being incurred today. Therefore, when we are looking at the end of the year, and maybe there are gaps, then we continue increasing our deficit from what we had planned to have, because then we have quickly moved on to expend on the realistic. But since we are privileged to have our colleague from KRA, they will maybe give us some statistics on how much they have been achieving the revenue measures that have been put in, the 3 trillion, because I know last year I think it was slightly less, and how much have we been able to maybe meet that or surpass? The other question that we must be uncomfortable with on this budget is the level or the amount of recurrent expenditure. Over 3/4 of that budget that we have of 4.82 trillion is going to recurrent expenditure. 2 trillion going to recurrent, 1.5 going to repayment of debts. And as we get into the next planning cycle, we must start seeing some trajectory towards reducing our expenditure on recurrent expenditure and moving towards development, because we all know that development projects will definitely have a better ripple effect in terms of bringing the growth in the GDP, growing the economy of the country, and therefore bringing in more revenues, and therefore it becomes easier for us. But going specifically to what can the government, the oversight institutions that have been put across to ensure that there is oversight of the budget, I want to cluster them into 3 major. I think I don't have enough time to go to each of the category. But looking at the government, and this I will include the parliament, I will include the government both at the national level and also at the county level, particularly at the national level. We have all these institutions that have been put in, either their constitutional offices or their structures that the government is supposed to enforce to ensure there is proper review. We have seen in Parliament in a couple of times, even the Auditor General reports being discussed there, sometimes even opening the discussions at Parliament and all that. But how can we strengthen the institutions that have already put in place and capacity build them and resource them in a way that they are able to keep the oversight of these institutions? So that is one of the things we need to do, and that is ensuring that they have the requisite resources, and that goes back to our priorities. Where is our priorities in terms of the budget appropriation? Number 2 is being accorded the requisite capacity in terms of skills and competencies that will be able to ensure that they are able to carry out their role. And the other thing that I would think about in terms of the government at the high level is ensuring that these offices, the like of the Controller of Budget, the Auditor General's Office, and many others, including the Commission on Revenue Allocation, the SRC, who are supposed to set up the salaries and remuneration, and that is where we are going to find a lot of now our movement from spending so much or a bigger proportion of the budget on recurrent. From a county level, I think one of the challenges we have in the counties is own source revenue. When you look at the proportion of budget, about 428 billion that is being appropriated to all the counties, that money is not enough to really achieve the development agenda that the devolution anticipated. And therefore, there is that expectation that they will be able to collect their own source revenue at the counties, and ensure that then those own source revenues are complementing what we get from the national government. But how many of those counties have put in measures that ensure there is no revenue leakages at their counties? I think we've seen in some instances where there is change in the leadership, and actually, or even there is a change. I know there are some counties who have even contracted KRA to collect for them. And you see a huge jump in own source revenues. That means that is an area that is not well exploited. The other thing on the county government is realisticness of the own source revenues that we expect to gather, to collect. Just like in the national level, the counties also would come up with a budget that will estimate that they'll be able to collect so much, and therefore their budget for that year is tied to that revenue that is to be collected. When they don't achieve the revenue targets, you see they still continue to expend on their on the expenditure part, particularly when it is the recurrent, and therefore that is where even the issues of pending bills and many other debts that cannot be paid are. The other thing, and I know my colleague has spoken about it, FCP Waruiru, is absorption of the budget on development. I think recently we were given some statistics on how the counties have absorbed the development budget versus the recurrent budget. And apparently, you'll see that the absorption of development budget is very low as compared to the other. And the development budget is what we expect that the projects that come out of that is that they will bring the ripple effect of development at the county level. And therefore, those are some of the things that the county government must be able to implement and ensure they enhance in ensuring that then the budget and usability of it is enhanced. When you look at the professional bodies, and I think this is where I should speak more on, is that we are the custodians of the expertise or the experts who are charged with the responsibility of ensuring the accountability is done in these counties. We have the requisite skills, competences, and experiences that are actually required for these counties. But how many of these counties actually have the head of finance or the people who are in charge of accountability, whether it is in the public financial management, whether it is in the reporting, that I have no idea on what they are, on accounting, or even employing the requisite skills in ensuring that they use them. But for us, professional bodies is continue agitating and make sure that our level of engagement, particularly at the counties, is continued, so that then we urge them to continue engaging professional expertise who will be able to help them in managing the resources. Then when we come to issue of determination of information in the public, being able to provide, also being able to ensure that we capacity build our members, and I think that is one of the things we have been very strong at Icpak, because the landscape of financial management, the reporting, and the entire framework keeps changing, particularly at this digital age. So therefore, the professional bodies, one of the expectations is that we keep our members up to date with what is changing and what is what is changing, and also hold them accountable. When you're a member of the professional body like accountants, and I think we started that journey 2 years ago, just reviewing the Auditor General's report and asking, why are we still receiving qualified and adverse reports from competent and qualified accountants? And I think that is a journey we have started and we are moving, including reviewing our act so that we can be able to net off, including preparers of financial statements. And those are some of the roles that the professional bodies can be able to cover. Allow me quickly to talk about the citizens and also civil society. That as citizens, we also have a responsibility in ensuring we participate, particularly when public participation is called. I think a lot of the general public will not maybe take part in such, and maybe when now the bill has passed and we have realized it's actually going to impact us, like what FCP Waruiru is talking about, the impact on the construction, maybe we go to the streets and we'll go there to agitate and all that. But before we go to the streets, this is what I would urge. Before we go to the streets, whereas that is a very important process, can we step back and say, when that process is called, We are going to participate in the public participation. We are going to provide our submissions. And after that, then if they are not taken, then we go to the streets as a second option rather than the only option that is there. And I know we have been accused sometimes as members of Icpak that we don't participate in the streets. Why? Because we have already participated in the boardroom in ensuring that we have made our submissions and our submissions have taken. Thank you, and back to you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, CEO. In fact, I was just, as you are wrapping up in terms of how will Mandamano be made. Mandamano should be done, one, following all the aspects in terms of participating, in terms of giving our submissions, supporting the submissions, making comments, and then now maybe finally, if need be, we can go to the street. And again, in case we go to the streets, let it be very peaceful. Yes. Okay, fine. So thank you for that. Now, I come to KRA, and this is going to be to CPA Mugore. We know that our revenue mobilization relies heavily on the efficiency of its delivery system, which is actually under KRA. So as the tax authority transitions towards enhanced real-time integration, the virtual electronic registers, and digital compliance platforms, something that is very important is user experience, which remains critical and crucial. Now, during the filing period, especially the last 2 days, it was quite a mess. And the system performance, the system downtime, they really affected our members and the public in general, which in a way brings in the issue of just some doubt on the public trust and even on the ease of doing business, because it's quite frustrating. So let's look at how the tax administration is being digitized to plug revenue leakages while keeping compliance frictionless for the honest taxpayer. So that's the background of my questions. So my first question is this. The ITAX system faced serious challenges during the last days of filing. What were the challenges? And what is KRA doing to ensure that this does not happen and user experience becomes, something that to smile about? And as you answer that, I also would want you to just tell us, how does the approved tax amnesty work, and how can businesses, households, and the citizens benefit? To you, Mugore.
Okay, thank you. That's quite a mouthful, but I'll try my best to answer everything. The first one is on the challenges that we faced, especially towards the 30th of June, and one of them is high traffic. We know, of course, everyone remembers, but they keep it away until they can't keep it away anymore, which is 28th June. That's when all my friends call me to file for them. I know you're not in that category. You don't do that. You file yours early. But the Kenyans out there did not file theirs early. So towards the last 2 days, we had very high traffic. That was the first challenge we experienced. How had we planned for this? Because we know high traffic comes every year. So what had we done? We had introduced Shuru about 3 or so months. Have you interacted with Shuru? Do you like Shuru? She did a great job for us, actually. And if you didn't have if you didn't have any issues, you could file in a minute on Shuru. So we knew that about 1 million of our taxpayers could go to Shuru even if the traffic was high these last 2 days. But we had an issue with Meta. So the traffic that we had hoped to divert to Shuru didn't quite go as planned. That's why the traffic was so high. However, it was still better than last year when we had the systems crashing. This time they did not crash. And now that having too much traffic, because a section of them could not be handled through Shuru, and now Shuru cannot offload the ones who have fewer problems, meant longer filing, more dropping out, and that's why we had those problems. We had needed to validate. Remember, this is the first time we were validating income and expenses. That was taking also a little longer per filing session per person than before. Those were the challenges. What are we doing to make sure that we have a better experience next time? The first thing is we have staggered returns in the Act so that the individual returns will be due by April and the persons, the non-natural persons, will be due by June. That makes then the traffic not coming at the same time. And are we transferring the problem we had in June to April? No, because most of the filers are individuals. We are not transferring the problem there because there are other things we are doing to ensure that the system will be stable even if we have more filers in April. The first thing is we are introducing web-based returns, and these returns, we are not going to have to require you to fill the Excel anymore. It will be web-based and it will be simplified for all the annual returns, both individual and the company. So that makes it less system use, less tedious, less complicated for the user. We will not have the validation. Validation was happening this time because it was the first time we were validating invoices. That is not going to be there. So then it will mean there will be more system available for the users. The next thing is Shuru will have stabilized because now whatever were the teething problems, she'll have been here for more than 6 months, so she'll be of better use. And we want to extend what you can do on WhatsApp, not just what we had for employees. We want to extend it so that you can file a whole range of returns on WhatsApp. Then we are also upgrading iTax, and that upgrade will be felt by the time we come to April for the individuals to file. So the system will be more stable and better. And we are counting on you to start filing as early as June. So when we put all those together, then we will not have the problems we've had. The other question was on the amnesty. Yes, we have an amnesty that is already rolled out because it was starting on 1st of July to 31st December 2026. That is the period within which you have the window to take advantage of the amnesty. What does the amnesty include? It includes penalties and interest and fines as long as you have paid your principal tax. Where there was no principal tax, like in the event of late filing of returns, then that one is automatic. We will not require you to apply for anything, but we'll need that the principal taxes be paid. In the event that you cannot pay the principal taxes in full, then you can get a payment plan on your system. You just log in and you go to payment plan and you say how you're going to pay. If you have not paid everything by 31st December 2026, it will mean you can only get a partial waiver.
Yeah.
So you need to pay so that you do not miss out on the amnesty. Then I think I've said everything on the amnesty. If you have issues with unresolved ADR matters or principal taxes that you disagree with, you need to run with speed and sort that out. Because if you sort the principle and clear now what you agree, then you can enjoy the amnesty. In the past, we've been told that I could not enjoy the amnesty because I did not sort out the issues with ADR. Please take time now, start now to sort out your issues, because when you come too late, then there's nothing we can do. This is a system, and it goes with what has been keyed in by 31st of December. So even if you are following up, but you didn't manage to sort out, then we might not be able to accommodate. The other issue is that amnesty. We might not have another amnesty, and this is not to make you take the one we have. And Robert, I want you to back me, or I want you to comment actually. One of the feedback that the stakeholders gave the MPs is that we are punishing the people who do right and reward who do wrong. Who are the ones who do right are the ones who pay their taxes, and if there are penalties and interest, they pay. What does KRA do? Or rather the Treasury do? Come and give, or the government, let's use the government, come and give an amnesty to the people who had arrears, like the ones now we are saying to pay. Kenyans are very alert, and what they are saying is, if you're going to give an amnesty to these people who did not pay in time, that's why they have penalties and interest, then you refund us what we paid. What does that tell you? People are very alert and aware, and they are seeing the discrimination, so we might not be able to give another amnesty as a government. That is not the government comments, that's my personal comment. After having interacted with this for a while, I see where we are heading. People are woke in every way. So make sure your tax matters are okay. Was there another question?
No. Yeah, so thank you so much, Mogore, for that. One, she has explained why there was a hitch and glitches when we were doing our filing. And I'd also like to urge all the taxpayers, we have a very long period to do our filing. So let's not continue being the ordinary Kenyans who like doing things at the last minute, and then we clog the system. And also thanks for just bringing the issues of tax amnesty. I know a lot of studies have been done on whether the amnesty increases compliance or it actually supports non-compliance. I don't know whether if CP Waruru you might want to comment about that, but I know we supported that, yeah, as Icpak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We certainly did support that as Icpak because, especially given that this was the first year of e-teams validation, we knew that there was going to be a lot of problems. We knew that there are people who are now doing their e-teams today, but they needed to rectify their past transactions. So I agree that it's an important one. But also I do concede Mogore's point, because this is what is called a perverse effect. Because the people who are compliant are saying, but why then did you have to pay? And if you think about it, the last two amnesties, I think KRA collected about 81 billion shillings in total collections, but waived about 500 billion shillings in penalties and interest. So you can see why people are saying, but why should I comply? And if you think like a Kenyan, a normal Kenyan, instead of paying today, I just see, in fact, and I think Mogore, you realize that the numbers are not yet out for KRA for the full year, but as soon as the amnesty was announced, then we all relaxed and we said, okay, after all, I actually don't need to file 2025 on time, because I'm going to file in July and I'm going to get a waiver. So there's a fear that these amnesties are engendering that kind of laxity and pushback by people, and also from a fairness perspective. And especially if you think about, I think this, if I'm not wrong, this is the fourth amnesty, but prior to this, fourth or fifth amnesty, but prior to this, amnesties were very, very rare. In fact, the one that most people remember most is the 2004 amnesty. That's the one that netted about 20 or so billion shillings. So between 2004 and 2016-17, we didn't really have amnesties, and then now we've had a series of them. So there's definitely that concern, and probably that's why I agree with your view that from a policy perspective, it may be difficult to justify another amnesty going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, FCP Wariro, for that rejoinder. So I want now to go to the Office of the Controller of Budget, and this actually is our last segment. So we want to focus on the ultimate gatekeeper of public funds. And I want to start by saying that the mandate to oversee budget implementation means looking past commitments to evaluate actual access, efficiency, and equity in public services. Now, we have a number of recurring issues that surrounds county funds delay. We have pending bills. We have a very low absorption rate, especially on development expenditure. And with all this, still the independent oversight remains essential for safeguarding public value. So my question now is this to you, CP Ondari. From your mandate and the recent reports, how is budget implementation improving access, quality, efficiency, and equity in public services? And then, what gaps and challenges have you identified that need to be addressed? To you, CP Ondari.
Thank you very much, Chair, for those questions. I want to say that the Office of the Control of Budget has a responsibility to ensure that all the resources that are received translate to better services every single day, both services offered by national government institutions and also services offered by the 47 county governments. At the same time, to ensure that that efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery is actually ensured by looking at the resources allocated to us. How are they utilized in ensuring those services are offered? If we start with the national government, we look at the resources or issue to ministries, departments, and agencies. They have a responsibility of ensuring that the projects and programs which are supposed to be implemented, specifically development projects. I know earlier we looked at a situation whereby most of the resources in the budget will go into recurrent utilization. I think the law is very clear in terms of how much is supposed to go to development and how much of the budget is supposed to go to recurrent. If you go to Section 107 of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 412A, it actually clearly spells out subsection 2. It spells out how much is supposed to go to development and how much is supposed to go to recurrent. The law indicates that, not indicates, but it requires that every entity is supposed to spend 70% of the resources on recurrent and other expenses, and then 30% must be spent on development. Where you indicated that the counties, they have a number of challenges relating to maybe delivering services and other entities, the counties are not exempt from this. And whenever counties submit their budget to the Office of the Controller of Budget, there are a number of items that the Controller of Budget has to check and ensure compliance at all times before the budgets are approved. One, 30% of the budget must be allocated to development, and then the rest now should be on recurrent. At the same time, personnel emolument, which is now resources used to pay salaries to employees at the county level, should not exceed 35%. I know there is a debate around that. Currently, we are doing about 52% on personnel emolument as opposed to what the law stipulates at 35%. But I know the national government has done a little bit better because we have moved from almost 56%, we are now at 39%. So the efforts which have been put in place to ensure that we spend most of those resources on development so that we minimize resources on recurrent comes from several other initiatives that the Controller of Budget has put in place to realize this objective. One, we ensure that the budget implementation is oversighted regularly. Apart from the Controller of Budget sitting in Nairobi, then sometimes or most of the time she makes efforts to visit every county, all the 47 of them, to see whether sometimes you can receive reports, but you want to verify physically what is happening at those areas of service delivery. Over the last, by February of this year, the Controller of Budget had visited all the 47 counties and assessed the usage of the resources across all the spectrum, focusing on funds raised from the hospitals, that's the FIF, to ensure that the funds raised are actually translated into service delivery. Looking at the roads which have been constructed across the 47 counties, you know that's a component that is a huge expense on most counties. At the same time, looking at now the conformity, compliance on laws establishing county public funds, independence of municipalities which have the responsibility of delivering services to Mwananchi. At the same time, looking at the water companies which have the responsibility of ensuring that your water is not rationed if it's supposed to be delivered in good time. By so doing, we ensure that, for example, the water companies, they minimize the non-revenue water, which is a significant component that minimizes the resources available and also kind of threatens the sustainability of those organizations across. So in ensuring that that is done, then you can be able to be sure that the services that you receive can be guaranteed and the resources that go into those service points, they're actually done. At the national government level, the Controller of Budget has initiated budget oversight for all national government institutions. This is done by ensuring that in addition to the reports which they submit, which the controller assesses regularly, then you confirm and verify physically whatever that is submitted by visiting those institutions and demanding, at least checking where the resources are spent to see whether Mwananchi is getting those services. In addition to that, the Controller of Budget, during now that budget oversight, interviews the recipients of services in different areas to confirm whether what has been reported actually translates to the services that they receive. In so doing, Mwananchi is very honest. They are just like small children. They say that people who are saying honest things are very few, but Mwananchi is very honest and very consistent in delivering information as far as what they feel they should receive reflects what they actually receive. At the same time, we also interact with people who are employed because people who earn employment income, in most cases, they complain on the levies levied on their respective pay slips. So the whole essence is that as much as we are spending 39% of our budget at the national level to pay employees. We are spending almost 52% of our resources at the county level to pay employees. Now, what is it that can be done to ensure that these resources actually mean so much in terms of the disposable income available to them that can translate into them having a multiplier effect on the economies that they operate in. So in so doing, we ensure that those people who receive this, which is directly coming from the government, can actually be able to say that the resources that are used by the government to pay us, as much as a lot of levies have been levied on us, they are actually supporting us. That also includes ensuring that the statutory deductions that come from those pay slips are actually remitted to institutions and ensuring that for example, the SACCOs, we have the SHA, affordable housing and the rest, so that when you go seeking those services, if you are sick, you go to hospital, your deductions have not been remitted. Obviously, you not receive those services. So those service points, the controller budget has ensured that this is done and is actually ensured. The other area is on aspects to do with the pending bills, which has threatened even businesses establishment across the country. If you look at the reports, which is actually another responsibility that the controller budget has, every 3 months, the 4th month, the controller budget gives shilling by shilling details of how your money has been spent. You look at the national government, where the national government budget implementation review report, which comes up at the last one for the 9 months, actually has been, if you go to the website of the controller budget, you'll be able to find it. On the national government budget implementation review report, over the last 9 months, as at 31st of March, the pending bills were about 471.6 billion. If you compare what was there the same period last year, 31st of March 2025, it was actually 511 billion. So that tells you that the pending bills have reduced by about 8%. The controller budget at the county has also influenced the same, whereby the budget, the pending bills have now, as per 31st, they were 156 billion, whereby we have 116 billion for recurrent and 40 billion for development. To ensure that these pending bills reduce, then businesses can be strengthened, resources can go to these entities, and ensure that we support those who operate on those space. I believe there isn't much which has been done, but I believe there is still more that we can do as an office in ensuring that there is transparency, accountability in budget utilization. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, CP Ondari, for just taking us through your role as the Office of the Controller of Budget in terms of being the ultimate gatekeeper of public funds. And I really like what you've told us about the citizen-led monitoring, because that is where we can actually get the value for money answer. We can also be able to confirm whether whatever is being put down in paper is actually the truth. Yeah, so we are now a few minutes to the end of this, and I would want to open the floor to the public, those of you who are online and also those of you who are here. So as you gather your question, I just want to throw one question to CPA Mogore, because I believe it's likely to be asked, and this is the question. How can digital tax administration and public finance management systems improve compliance, reduce leakages, and support evidence-based decision-making? So members, as she answers, please get ready with your questions online. Hilary, you can be checking. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. And to answer your question on the digitization, one, of course, there's the obvious benefits of digitization, which is saving time, ensuring your records are available, and all those. But the main one, which can help us to seal leakages, is one, ensuring that all the money goes to the kitty, because then when the systems are digitized, first of all, there's a track of the records that are interacting with the system, the amounts put there, and that is one. So all the money, all the records, there's a track. Then there is no interaction of the systems or the documents with the officer. That minimal human interaction then reduces points of revenue leakage. Then accountability, because everything is on the system and there is a track, there is better accountability. It is even better when there's integration of, say, the digital systems for the Revenue Authority with the government, like the integration that is proposed for ITMIS and iTax. That would mean then that all the businesses we are seeing, it reduces disputes, because whatever you do on this system, we see on the tax side, and there is no saying, right now we get a lot of, I didn't do that, someone used my PIN. But if it's on the system, there's every chance, because there are checks before you get onto the system, that you are involved in that trade. So it enhances, it sees leakages and enhances revenue, the collection, the amounts, and the accountability of it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, CPA Mogore, for that. Let me stand here so that I can be able to get a better visibility. So it's now time for Q&A. I will start with those who are online, because the questions are already there. And then after that, we'll come to the floor. So as you say your question, please mention your name, and also you can direct the question to the panelists that you want to respond. So in the meantime, let me take this opportunity to welcome one of our council members who has just arrived, FCPA Professor Leti. Karibu kabisa. Yeah, so our first question comes from CPA Francis Ngola, and she asks, and this definitely is going to KRA, what happens to KRA compliance? The system is showing returns were not filed, yet they were filed, hence denying individuals compliance. Is it data transfer problem in KRA? So that is from CPA Francis Ngola. And then there's also another question from CPA Stephen Kitoko. And the question is, the question of additional assessment continues to be a thorn in the flesh, more so when a period was assessed, is reassessed based on the information that was available to the commissioner during the first assessment. This aspect makes compliance very costly. Is there a remedy to this? That again goes to KRA, and for us as Icpak, if we have any comments around that through FCPA Warero, you can comment on what we have been saying. And then there's still some other questions still on KRA, on the system being down. So I think the system issue, KRA, you've responded, but please try to respond to this again. And then if I can go to other questions. Hillary, I'm trying to... Is it touch? Yeah, so as he gets more questions, good, okay. Yeah, so I hope those who have the mic in the room, you have identified those who will be asking the questions. Okay, yes, and then there's another question here. This one, I think it will go to, I would want it to go to FCPA Warero as our convener on PFT. Somebody says, and this is something I'd said, it is, I believe it is a waste of time for members to participate in a process if their views are never given a fair hearing. The government must do better by fostering genuine public participation rather than merely going through the motions. Without transparency, accountability, and meaningful engagement, the process risks appearing undemocratic and undermines public trust. So I think maybe clarity on just how is this public participation done? Because today, for the first time, I've heard the process. And we normally say that things have not been done. I think you might just want to articulate that again. And then the next, actually most of the questions that are coming are to KRA, but I've seen one to the COB. This is from the question I asked about wastage of time. This came from CPA Kevin Tendwa. We have another question that comes from, that goes to the COB from CPA Jackson Opio. And it says, what happens to the unremitted statutory deductions from county employees running in arrears of more than 1 year? to what extent that the county executive officer who faulted the PFM Act by not remitting loans deducted from employees and, I mean, for these are loans that have been deducted and not remitted, and these are the county level. So the question is, what happens? So this is a Mwananchi crying, an employee. What remedy is there for them? So that is the first set of questions from the virtual audience. I will allow 2 questions from the floor. Who has the mic? Yes, you can say your name and who the question is going to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Philip Omolo. I'd like to direct my question to the KRA representative. First of all, I want to thank KRA for taking a big step in ensuring that we comply and also with the introduction of e-teams. My main challenge and the question is that I feel like KRA does not involve other government bodies in ensuring that there's a proper compliance with the e-teams. A case example, when you are dealing with government, county government, you'll realize that they don't issue the e-teams. And also our own Icpak, whenever you make the payment, there's no e-teams receipt. So I think by the end of this year, we'll also experience a challenge of ensuring that you scan your document and upload it. So is there a way KRA can involve other government bodies so that we can bridge the gap that we currently have? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's another mic. So Dr. Charity.
Yeah, thank you. Allow me just to say that there was a question which was, which prof, you asked CPA or the KRA, how can the digital administration, digital tax administration affect compliance? I want to say that I have a student whom I'm supervising working for KRA, and actually this is one of the topics she's undertaking. She's doing MSc Finance in KU. So I want to say this, when we were growing up in the village, those of us who grew in the village, our parents could actually say at the end of when the budget has been rent, sukari imeenda juu, unga imeongezewa. And I want to say that that could be the very same perception the people in the village have. Us here, we could be aware of the tax bill, finance bill, but right in the village, I want to imagine that we may not really require solidarity like we do in KU when we're on the streets, the lecturers, but is there a way in any gathering the KRA can collaborate with the church, any chama, so that we continue educating people what is this thing called finance bill, what has gone up, what has not gone up, so that this is a continuous communication throughout. To FCPO Wariro, the good Bible tells us that you should forgive 77 times. Let us give the amnesty more times. Well, I'm not saying that you should actually give the members this amnesty, but we follow the Bible. So the other thing which I want to say, that I'm one of those persons who are affected by the pending bills, the public universities and the county governments. What can be done? I don't know. We are suffering. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can see quite a number of hands, but because of time, I'll take one question here. Okay, 2 questions. Yes. You can give CPA Njero and his neighbor.
My colleague, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. This is CPA Jacob Jero Sisa. Thank you for the opportunity to hear my concerns. One is in regards to amnesty. If you look at that circular, the press release, is saying that until 31st December. But to be honest, I've been having challenges with I'm a partner in KRA Mashinani with my clients, whereby they came the last minute. And not even that. Icpak has engaged KRA in several occasions in regards to iTax, validation of iTax. Can you imagine uploading all your documents? Can you imagine having a receipt with a KRA pin from a matatu? Can you imagine having a KRA pin from your kinyozi? It is impractical. So for me, what I see is a system which is good for us and for the economy, but we are not ready for it even next year. We will face the same challenges. Amnesty is an international practice across the world. It's not only Kenya. So it's, I think that will stay. Saying it's up to 31st, I don't think so. I'm a system auditor. The second question is in regards to the capacity of our ITACs. Irrespective of the flow, whether I log in the last minute or not, it should work seamlessly. And that is negotiable. We pay KRA, this country, a lot of money just to take care of us. Now to come and tell us we came the last minute, for me is an excuse that is unacceptable in our eyes, because system has to absorb any form of pressure. It's not the first time we are experiencing the same. Last year we experienced the same. The year before, we have been in this game, and we know it. The second is in regards to non-compliance, in regards to 30% rule to the Kenyans and the government in terms of capital expenditure. It has been occurring now and then. What is it that the law is not giving our regulator to implement so that we Kenyans become more disciplined? Because for me, it's a physical discipline. We don't have discipline in what we're doing. And again, what happens if you don't comply? That is very key. In the public sector, if you don't perform, there is repercussions. So what are the repercussions? And do we implement that? The Auditor General flags these issues. Then when do they end up to? I think we need to think and sit back and see how we can do it. If we have a challenge, you can explain to us how we can be of help as Icpak or as public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and please let's make it short. And as he speaks, another question to KRA, and this one is a question that affects majority of us. Why should an employee be denied a TCC because of ledger reconciliations that have totally nothing to do with them? We are deducted at source. Yes. Yeah, so you can please make it short.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof, for giving me this chance. I'm CPA Dr. Paul Korea. Okay, there's something I wanted to comment about. This one is about more of the issue of the recurrent expenditure, how we treat our revenue expenditure and capital expenditure, in regard even to the county government. Because sometimes the county government will do the big projects, like for example, even building the hospitals. And you see, after they build and they put the equipment, that one is already a capital expenditure. But there could be now the fear of staffing, because it's going to go now to the recurrent, and already the recurrent has been there, it's already capped. We need to look at, for new facilities, can we be having a review of like trying to see how are we going to consider those percentage? And in this case, I'm trying to look at how can we Africanize our governance. Then another thing about the pending bills. By that 1st December 2025, our pending bills were studying about more than 500 billion, if I'm correct.
Okay, summarize, please.
Yes, these pending bills, we need to understand that there are traders that did business and they even raised the invoices. When they raised the invoices, already they were supposed to have paid taxes. This one can explain even to the KRA, where when you come to this issue of like traders not paying the principal taxes on time, you can understand because of these, some of these pending bills. So when you are giving us the waivers and the interest, sometimes understand that you are not supposed to budget for even the penalties and his interest. So that now you say that perhaps you are supposed to have paid 500 billion and you have already received 80 billion. Sometimes these 500 billion is the message that has already been done by the government as far as delaying the payments the traders is concerned. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And then Marceline, you can check whether the online audience is connected. Good, I can now see the image. Yeah, so we can start with the KRA. I think you had many questions, huh? So we'll start with you, and then we can go to COB, and then we can go to FCPA Warrior. Yes. Okay, just a second. We are taking them in order. You'll talk in the next round, kindly. Okay, please, let's continue. CPM Ogore.
Okay, I'll answer the questions. Like you say, there's a second round coming, so you'll get a chance.
Please, can we have some order? Yeah, please, CPM Ogore, proceed.
So I want to start with the issue of disappearing returns. And the participant said that sometimes they file returns and then they can't find. So sometimes this would have happened, maybe you filed when the system was down, but usually the system sends you a copy of that return on your email. So in the event that you're able to find the email, but you can remember the time, you can write to KRA, then they can see if they can retrieve. And sometimes if the systems were down, after some time, after you have filed, when the systems are up, you get the notification, though it comes late. But you will not be penalized because the record will have been there that you filed early. Then the issue of additional assessments, is there a limit to additional assessments? The law limits us to 5 years in keeping records, and that's when our assessments are usually aligned, unless there's an issue of fraud. So we have some sections of the law that allow us to go back as far back as possible. And usually you'll find in assessment there is a disclaimer that if the commissioner comes to additional information, so that person did not dispute the additional assessment, they were just frustrated that they keep coming. So I think the best way to avoid that is just to put all the cards on the table, because if another cards comes out, especially with the E-teams now, then another additional assessment comes in also. We have been told it is not acceptable that the system keep going down, and I accept what you're saying, it is not acceptable, but we are doing everything that we can, and you pay us a lot of money. We are trying to stabilize the system. I said that even before you asked that question, to try and avail more channels, try and simplify the returns. We feel it because even us, the staff, use the same systems. So we give the same feedback. If it's frustrating us, how much more is it frustrating our customers? And we acknowledge, and that's why we are trying to see what can we simplify, how can we upgrade our system. That is being done, and we keep trying. We appreciate your feedback, so keep giving it, even if it's negative, until we come to a place that you're happy with. Then there was an issue about public participation. I do public participation, especially for the regulations and those subsidiary legislation, and then the public participation for the finance bill. We have called you, and you come and give your feedback. At the back of my mind, what I want you to understand and to remember as we do this public participation, the government is our mother, all of us, and we must listen to all our participants. One taxpayer will come and say, I am in this industry, it is harmful to the people, but I'm paying you taxes. We have people employed there. I'm supporting this number of families. Another one will say, no, we don't want the products of this person because they are causing illness. Put a lot of taxes on them. And one is coming after the other. So it's a balancing act. So what we can take, we take. What we cannot take, what we can postpone, we do that. But we must listen to everyone. You can't accommodate everyone because of the nature of the government being the mother of all of us. What affects one person is a benefit to the other. So we try as much as possible to balance on that. The issue of collaborating with chamas and churches, that's a really good idea, and we're trying to do that so that we can get our message to the grassroots. When people understand better the laws and the tax provisions, then they comply better, and we try to do that. We have a department dedicated to training, and what they do, they have an internal timetable where we keep calling taxpayers, we're training on this, we published in the papers, but the idea of the chamas and churches, we can see how to bring that in. Though when they call us, we go, even on the weekends. I have been to many. So when they call us, the training department will just get the right person for whatever it is that you want to be talked to about, and they bring the person to you. I want to talk about the issue of E-teams not being favorable for everyone, for the Mamamboga and our small taxpayers. To accommodate those taxpayers, we have an administrative mechanism that has just been rolled out. I'm not sure whether the auditors have come across it, the 40%, where we are saying if you do not have all your expenses and if you cannot do the CSV or that kind of thing, we'll allow you to claim 40% of the turnover as expenses. So we have given guidelines on how that is being done. and that is being used for 2025. So you have access to that for 2025 because of the many issues that came with 2025. Validation, you didn't get your ATMs in time, someone else says the issue of government not giving ATMs invoices, so that has been addressed, at least for 2025, using that 40% guideline. So it is available in our policy. I'm sure it will be rolled out to the auditors, so to leverage for 2025. As to whether it will go forward, I do not know, but it's an administrative mechanism that has come to take care of the small taxpayers. On the issue of KRA not working with all the other government bodies, KRA, because of the nature of the work we do, we are generally fast. We try to work with the other government bodies, but we are ahead usually due to the mandate we carry for this country. But to answer your question on the issue of other government agencies and the counties, we have a dedicated department called the PSD. And we are running them now to ensure that they have invoices, ETIMS invoices rolled out, so that like people who are doing large purchases of power, of water, and the other government purchases, then they get an ETIMS invoice. We are actively on that, especially for this year. However, I wanted Warero to comment on whether you got a ruling with regard to professional subscriptions, what he was talking about. Was there any guideline given? I know you sought a guideline. I don't know whether it was given. We can clarify that to the members maybe later. But there was a guideline as to whether subscriptions should be issued on ETIMS invoices or they are among what was exempted. I would need to look into that, and then we can guide on whether Icpak, you're expecting ETIMS invoices from Icpak. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We can go to CP Ondari.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I think we had two questions, one from the online audience and the other one from Dr. Charity CPA. The question was on the repercussions around a whole year failure by counties to submit statutory deductions, which includes even commitments, personal commitments like loans to SACCOs and others, even to SHA and that related. I want to say that the Control of Budget releases funds to pay personnel emolument, and this is done in gross. So when the Control of Budget, if you are supposed to pay to receive 100 shillings, the Control of Budget will not release 50. She will release 100 shillings to the county. But Senate allowed the Control of Budget rights to view IFMIS, final transactions, something that has not been done end to end. As a result of that, once the Control of Budget has released the funds, she doesn't have the capacity to monitor the final utilization of those resources. So as a result of that, entities which receive those resources, for instance, the counties, they might choose to pay net instead of gross. So in this case, if your salary was 100 shillings and 40 shillings was supposed to go to your state road deductions, let's say, aspect to do with affordable housing, a loan to your SACCO, to your bank, insurance and other commitments, they'll pay you, let's say, 60 shillings, and the 40 shillings might be retained for either some period, either they'll be paid eventually, but somehow there has been witnessed complaints. And if you go to the website of the Office of the Control of Budget, there is an online portal where you can report either directly or anonymously, such that now the Control of Budget can take maybe instant measures around the same. So when they delay to pay those maybe deductions for maybe a month or so, I think the question was asked for a period close to almost 1 full year. When that happens, I know banks, SACCOs institute penalties to these individuals because according to them, they had an obligation to pay. They had a check of loan, but they didn't what? They didn't pay. As a result of that, interest is a function of time. So if you didn't pay within this period, the amount outstanding, you have to pay interest or a penalty for it. That means that now the ultimate obligation somehow increases. So the remedy available to that one is to ensure that such cases are reported directly. Then whenever such an entity makes the next requisition for exchequer, then the Control of Budget has evidence to ensure that they can stop that maybe requisition based on the complaint which has been raised by either a member or an anonymous or an interested party to ensure that we streamline the utilization of those resources. At the same time, we talked about monitoring budget implementation across entities. Whenever this exercise is done, then the respective entity is required to demonstrate that they are actually adhering to the regulations laid either by law or the standard operating procedures that guide the utilization of these resources from time to time. It's not only for people on employment income. We also have entities like contractors who directly complain that after their either VAT or other taxes are being deducted, they have not been, maybe either withholding tax certificate has not been issued or is delayed in terms of remittance. As a result of that, KRA will institute either penalties or maybe interest based on the outstanding amount. Those are some of the issues that the controller is working on, but I believe gradually we should be there. So during the time when that exercise is done, effective measures are done to ensure that any violation on these issues are actually capped at source. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. And I hope the audience and even the member who asked that question, especially on non-remittance of deductions that have already been deducted at source, and then now you end up suffering. I think that's something that even the controller, the Office of the Controller of Budgets, can actually sensitize the workers so that they know what remedy they have. Yeah, so we'll now go to FCPA Warero to respond to that, to the questions that were direct. Oh, sorry, yeah, there's also another, CPA Mogore, you can add on that.
Sorry to interrupt. There was a question I didn't answer on the employee who is denied at TCC because the employer has not remitted.
There are reconciliation issues.
Two angles to it. For all government employees, our staff are aware that they're not supposed to deny a TCC. And this is an employee, because we've been having reconciliation issues with government payments because of the IFMIS. So the payments have been manual, but that is being closed in due course. So those ones should not be denied, and it is known. Then the second category is an employee. They might have a reconciliation issue or no reconciliation issue, but there is evidence that they have another source of income. Then that becomes a reason why you can be denied a TCC. But if it's clear that your only source of income is employment income, then you should not be denied whether a government employee or a private employment company employee, you should not be denied your TCC.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, CPA Mogore. We can now go to FCPA Warero.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And perhaps one of the things that we will do immediately with my good friend Mogore here is write to her so that she can put it in writing, so that then we can be providing it whenever we're asking for our TCCs. But just very quickly, on the issue of the double assessments, I agree. We shouldn't really have a double assessment. And if KRA is coming for a second bite at the cherry, then they have to demonstrate why they are actually looking at this, and that's very clear in the law. In terms of meaningful engagement for the budget process, I agree. We have to continue engaging. And in fact, if you look at the committee report, it's over 1,000 pages. And the committee actually went responding to each and every proposal, whether they agree or disagree with it. And so I think that it's not really a waste of time. We are engaging, and we've certainly gotten some good results. We've gotten, like, for example, this issue of the distribution of dividends for those of you who are running companies. We engaged extensively, and the committee agreed with us that we shouldn't have that forced distribution ratio. So I think it's a good thing. But also, I think it's important to understand that we're operating in a very, in a field that has been defined by the Court of Appeal with regard to the lawmaking process. Remember, the Court of Appeal in 2023 said that Parliament, as the representatives of the people, can make changes on these bills on the floor of the House. And that's the reason why you'll see that sometimes the final act comes out with changes that we probably did not see, but have been proposed there. And so I think the lesson there is that we continue engaging these policymakers, these lawmakers, until we get the Finance Act or the Act at the end of the day. On the issue of the government entities not issuing ETIMs, I agree. There's a big issue around that. We've engaged the KRA on that, and they're trying to get these entities on the ETIMs platform so that, you know, your Kenya Power bills, your regulatory payments that you make to these regulatory bodies, their e-teams, because otherwise we'll have a problem when claiming these expenses. So it's something that we are continuing to engage with KRA. They're also engaging, but also I think it's important that KRA helps us in pushing these entities because they're not specifically exempt. So they should be pushed to issue these invoices so that we don't have a problem. As for Icpak, I haven't seen the advisory memo, but because Icpak enjoys certain tax exemptions, I believe that those ones should not be subject to e-teams, but that's something that we can also then follow up. I agree with Dr. Charity CPA. We can forgive, and we should really forgive many times, but what happens about the people who have also complied? We should see how we can also accommodate them. Chair is saying that we reward them. I think my good friend CPA Njeru here, you raise a valid point. You see, when and these are practical issues. If we've got people who use bodas, people who use matatus, and these are legitimate business expenses, but nobody will give you an e-teams in a matatu. You may pay via M-Pesa, but nobody will give you an e-teams. And those are the things that we are saying to KRA. Can we look for practical ways where we can try and comply with the law whilst also supporting businesses? Because you can't say that that's not a legitimate business expense. So that's something, and by the way, we engage with Josephine here and the team on a monthly basis. So we're actually waiting to go and see them this month of July so that we can address that. And I agree, iTax should work seamlessly. What perhaps Josephine did not tell you is that iTax is 11 years old. It's an old system, and anybody who has been working with systems, you know that you need to invest in this new system. So we know that KRA is in the process of investing in a new system, and I don't hold their brief, but we need to update that system because just like ICMS came to replace, what was it called? Simba. So it's something that we perhaps need to do that. I also just want to say a bit about that 40% expense reduction. So I feel that it's a good gesture by KRA, but who makes a taxable profit of 60%, guys? You know, that nobody makes a profit. I mean, I want to know which business this is because even me, I want to get engaged in that business so that I can then make 60%. And if I make 60%, I don't mind giving KRA their 30% of the 60%, right? So I think the 40% threshold, Mogore, we need. Yeah, no. We need to, because 40% surely that's not sufficient in my view. But we can have a conversation around that. Then there are questions around the expenditure and development versus recurrent. I take your point, Daktari, but just looking at, for example, healthcare, where you need to then engage additional resources, which drives your revenue expenditure higher. But remember, with this hospital, you'll then collect more fees, more user fees, which means that your base also goes higher, which means that you can employ guys. But that's just one, because if I do a road, for example, or a market, then the number of, or the amount of revenue expenditure that I need to deploy to run that asset is not significant. Yet, when I have a marketplace that has been built, it means more traders can come and trade. We can collect more cess, we can collect more of these levies and so on. So I think it's a good thing. But I think because we're solution oriented here. My question, and perhaps this is to CPA Cyrus there, why is it, if we know that these county governments are not deducting these levies, so why don't you give them the net? You know that they're not deducting. Why are you continuing to fund them? Let's give them the net. They pay people their net salaries because, of course, if they don't pay the salaries, everything will grind to a halt. So we give them the net amount. We pay the taxes so that we don't have issues with SHA not having collected and KRA not having collected and all those things. So I actually think that we need to probably, as accountants, as a body of professionals, be bold enough to bring some of these proposals to the floor and say, this is what we think is going to change this thing. Then my last point is around just the way we approach budgeting. You see, you and I, and we've discussed this before, you and I will tailor our expenditure based on our income. None of you sitting here, none of you online will say that I want to spend 200,000 shillings, but my salary is 70,000. None of you does that. Yeah? So the question is, then why can't we as government decide, by the guys, our revenue collection for this year is going to be 3.6 trillion. So we have to work with 3.6 trillion. What are our critical expenditures? We have to pay the debt, we have to pay salaries, we have to pay all these other things. Then we agree, let's do that. Because for as long as we continue coming up with the expenditure element first and then we run to fund it, we will never be able to fund it. And you know, this country last had a surplus from a budget perspective in 2004. And part of the reason why we had a surplus is because people agreed to pay the taxes. Now we are happy to pay the taxes, but can we get the services for heaven's sake? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that response. And I think quite a number of issues are coming out that I believe after the end of this, we'll be able to do some compilation and ensure that this information is out there. Now, before we come to a close, there's a member who has been raising his hand. Can we give him an opportunity to ask a question? Let him be brief and to the point. At the back.
Okay, thank you, CP Ondari, and thank you, the career representative.
Volume, please.
Okay, my name is CPA Osumo Joseph. I'm a member of the Institute and an auditor at KPMG. Thank you for this opportunity to talk. Mine is just a simple question. What is the government doing, or what is KRA doing to ensure that all taxpayers pay their fair share of taxes? Because at the moment, there is a significant focus on the payslip guys, us. So what is the government doing in that line? And another final submission is I want to commend the government in terms of the reduction in pending bills, as stated by CP Ondari. That's a very key point because it has now reduced from around 511 billion to around 400 and something billion. Yeah, that's quite commendable because I noticed most of the questions were kind of putting the government in the spot, which I don't believe should be the case. We should be at least objective. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CP Onsumo, for your question. So the question is going back to Mogore and and also Ondari, yes.
The member was appreciating the efforts that the controller budget has put in place to ensure that we reduce pending bills, which now translates into increasing our disposable income or available resources for businesses to support the economy. Because the more revenue available to the businesses, the more they invest, the more they transact, the more taxes that our KRA is able to collect for us. And just to mention that the controller budget has put in a system to carry out aging analysis of all the pending bills to ensure that we apply the principle of FIFO. That's first in, first out. Not a situation whereby we apply a LIFO, the last in, first out, whereby somebody who came last is paid, yet somebody who's supplied goods, works, and services earlier remains in the books as pending bills for several years, and that is on the track on the controller budget's responsibility. It's also a responsibility given to her through the 129th ordinary session of the Icpak, which she's tracking and reporting quarterly. Thank you.
Thank you, CPA Mogore.
And thank you for your question. You asked what is KRA doing to ensure everyone pays their fair share of taxes, and you commented that the payslip people have been ambushed. The one thing that we are doing is trying as much as possible to expand the tax base. And eTeams is one of our sure tools, because if someone makes a sale and they put it on eTeams, then we are sure to know that they made that sale. And maybe my appeal on that would be, when you buy even your individual consumables, please ensure it is done on eTeams, because sometimes what businesses do, they will declare some sales and not declare the individual ones. Some businesses, not everyone. So it is our collective responsibility to ensure even where KRA is not, you're there, you're purchasing. Let them declare those sales on eTeams. Then, when we are aware that that sale has been made, then we'll follow up of the taxes on that. Then the other thing is we have rolled out a few withholding taxes. Withholding taxes help us, the person who's being paid, to be withheld from, so that gives visibility to KRA. We are trying to reach out to the hard-to-tax sectors, such as the digital economy. We've been seeing some changes towards the digital economy. Then we are trying to ensure that the rates are harmonized so that we don't have some people paying taxes at 15% or such lower rates, so that then everyone is able to pay their fair share. And the fact that we have an MTRS, the medium-term revenue strategy, it forces us as policymakers and the think tank for the government to sit down and think of these issues one by one. What can we do about this sector that seems to be hard? What can we do about this? Just the fact that you sit down and put it into a document and try to enforce that document through a given period helps us then to see where are we having leakages, what can we do, welcoming proposals from the public. Yeah, that's what we are doing.
Okay, thank you so much, CPA Mugore, for that. So we've come to the close, but before we leave the podium, I just want to mention 3 things that we've had. One, and this is something that I will really keep insisting, so that as KRA continues with the changes or the implementation, they can actually take that trust is the real tax base. It is not increasing the number of people who should pay the tax, but ensuring that this tax, this is because it has been seen in other countries where compliance grows, where citizens can see the road, where the citizens will get the medicine when they go to hospital, and where the teachers will be paid their salaries, and the numbers of teachers can be seen in schools. So let's ensure that every shilling that leaks does not just steal a service, it steals the willingness to pay the next shillings. So I know your area as KRAs to do the collections. There's the side that spends, so that is the side that we need to work together to ensure that every shilling gets its use. The other issue that we've learned, and it has also come across severally when we were having our conversation, is that implementation is where the budgets live or die. Because we've seen we have our budgets, but in terms of implementation, that's a big question comes in. And there were suggestions when we were doing the Finance Act that in future, when the cabinet secretary is reading the budget, he should be able to tell us about the previous year's budget, how was it implemented, and what is the difference between what had been budgeted for, what had been approved, and what was actually spent. And then something that now goes to every member who is here is that oversight is everybody's responsibility. If you can recall, the CPA Cyrus from Office of the Controller of Budget talked about citizen monitoring. Now, all of us, it is not the role of the Auditor General, it is not the role of the Parliament, all of them have a role, but we as citizens, it is up to us to ensure that accountability is going to be done because it is our role, and the team spirit is what will ensure that every shilling that we pay from our pocket, from our hard-earned money, is going to do the job that it does, and this is service to Mwananchi. So with those 3 points that I collected from this discussion, which I can also say that we will publish this, the proceedings of this, so that members can hear. We'll push it to the relevant authorities so that they can implement. And let's continue following and seeing how the budget is going to be implemented until the end of the next of this year to the next financial year. So at this juncture, I can see our tradition of giving gifts to our guests is clearly laid out in front of me. So I will request Marceline to guide us in that bit before we do our final vote of thanks, which will come from my council colleague and the CEO of CASNEB, FCPA, Professor Leting. So Marceline, you can guide on the gifting.
Thank you, Chair. In the spirit of accountability, we'll exclude CEO and Chair from being gifted, because the service they give to the institute is part of the gift, and they're leading by example, so they will actually be gifting our other panelists. So Chair, you'll be gifting FCPA Waroiro, CEO, you will gift FCPA Mogore, and then FCPA Leting, you will be gifting CPA Ondari.
Thank you. So he can come to the front. Yeah, so thank you so much. He's actually one of us, huh? Yeah, so thank you so much. This is our signature bag. So carry it with a lot of pride, knowing that as Icpak, we are actually the eyes of the public, and public trust is what actually guides us in whatever we do. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just want to tell CPM Mugure that this is not just a bag. This is a brand. Wherever you go, this brand has gone everywhere. You go to Europe, you go to America, you go to Latin America, Australia, everywhere it has gone. Carry it with a lot of pride and know that we stand for public interest.
Okay, thank you. Again, last but not least, this one. Our colleague from Control of Budget, I think we like the communication you normally have with stakeholders, including counties. They should account for every account. So even for you, we expect you to account for this by being to your employer and to all the members of the institute who are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Proceed.
Oh.
And our panelists can stand with their bags with the side of Icpak facing the cameras.
The ladies are to be protected. In 3, 2, 1, smiles, 1 minute. If you can switch FCPA letting, and yes, for the balance. In 3, 2, 1, the biggest smiles. 3, 2, 1, one more smile. Thank you very much.
Yes, please clap for. Okay. My document. Good evening. All the FCPS in the room, virtually and physically here, and all CPS have been given a difficult assignment of thanking people, even though I came late myself. So that is a punishment of being punished. On behalf of the council, the vice chairman has requested me, the newly re-elected vice chairman, FCPA Bernard Amuka, has requested me to make the vote of thanks on his behalf because it's our tradition to do that. We want to thank everybody who has come, who has joined us physically here at the auditorium, and also those who have joined us virtually. But before I specifically go on those ones, allow me to really join my colleagues in the council, our chairman, our CEO, and my council colleagues who are online, the secretariat for a well done job. We would also like to thank the National Assembly for donating one of their members, who is one of our members, also FCPA Kimani Kuria, who would really have loved to be here personally, but due to other commitments elsewhere, we really want to thank him for accepting to come. And he was planning to come until the last minute. Even up to now, he's still planning to come. But because of other duties, he has had to be committed elsewhere. He's the chairman of Finance and National Planning Committee at National Assembly. So this message of appreciation should go directly to his employer, the National Assembly, and the people who have elected him from Molo. We cannot forget to thank Kenya Revenue Authority through our colleague CPA Josephine Mugure for the well-answered questions. I would have asked her more questions. You know, I'm an examiner. I wanted to ask her something about tax amnesty and some of those things, but you know, I came late. I cannot ask questions and I'm a late comer. So, thank you so much, Josephine. We will be able to come back to you next time. We have also would like to thank our colleague CPA Cyrus Ondari for being able to come and answering the questions. I think we have a future control of budget. Do you agree? Because Ondari has answered all the questions the control of budget would have answered even if she was here. Can you clap for all these guys? Last but not least, our member. In fact, for a long time, I've thought he's a permanent employee of Icpak. And FCPA Robert Wairuiru, he has been our convener for Public Finance and Tax Committee. And you clap for him again. He's always there are occasions, Chairman, you recall, sometimes we are very busy elsewhere. And we have to present papers to the Committee of National Assembly on Finance and National Planning. The face of Icpak has always been Waroiru. We can clap for him again. So thank you so much with all those people who have been able to be here. Our CEO, of course, together with the team led by Hilary and Marceline and the rest of I can see also our colleagues in research development, they are all here. And all the people around. In fact, can you clap for yourselves? The last one, of course, we have the media people who are assisting us to capture this. It's going to be a future reference, particularly for those people who are interested in knowing more. I think this engagement, you'll agree with me, has been very insightful, very educative, and it is not enough. Chairman, I would like to propose that we continue having similar events here. Yes, we continue having similar events so that we can be able to learn more. Because, you know, when I go home, in my village where I come from, I am asked questions as if I'm working for KRA. Why is the government increasing taxes to the employees, people who are having salary? So we need to learn more. I think the team from Kenya Revenue Authority, Control of Budget, and all of us. Of course, people are here physically. I can see my friend there, Governor, and the people are online. I am seeing you directly, people online. Thank you very much for being online, and including our council colleagues who are there. I have heard that almost all my council colleagues are online. The issue of public participation, I think we have always been engaged as Icpak, and we look forward to participating even in future ones. The only thing I would like to tell our colleagues is that members of the Institute, as well as other non-members, that Icpak is always ready to do specific, tailor-made capacity building in liaison with Icpak and our committee, as well as the Kenya Revenue Authority. So don't get disturbed about what you need to do next, about e-teams, iTax, assessment issues, and all those things. I recently got my TCC, although I was told I had some liability because my employer had not filed something, but I want to confirm. I want to confirm the Josephine that we got all our tax TCC. So we can apply for jobs or even apply for other things that we are looking forward to getting in the near future. The good news that you have heard about pending bills that have been cleared, thank you very much, and all the rest of the things. So for me, from where I sit as a council member representing KASNEP, I just want to wish you well and request those people who have not finished their exams to come and finish with KASNEP. And those who have finished CPA, come and do other courses in KASNEP, yeah? And also be active members of the Institute. Thank you very much. I hand over back to Marceline to take us up from there. You can clap for me as well.
Thank you, FCP. I think he deserves a better round of applause. Thank you. So for now, we're coming to the end, and we'd like to close with a word of prayer. And I'll be calling upon Hilary Onami to pray for us. And also to invite you, we have a lot of tea and snacks on the other side of the restaurant. Please do not leave before having a bite of something. We can stand for a word of prayer before we close. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's believe and pray. Our gracious Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for this opportunity that we have had to deliberate on the matters that concern us as professions, as citizens, as businesses. We pray, dear Lord, that it will be to the betterment of our country, that each and every one of us will be contributing a bit to the development of our country. Dear Lord, as we embark on our various journeys, we pray for safe journey mercies. And until we gather again, dear Lord, may you keep us safe. May you provide and continue blessing us, each and every one of us at our various points of need, dear Lord. Let your name be glorified this evening. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Karibuni sana. We have snacks across in the restaurants. Thank you.